Hey everyone, we are going to start the semester with a drawing materials inventory so that we can start to kind of understand the quality of our materials, the kinds of marks they make, and just kind of get used to what we're going to be working with. So I'm going to just show you the first two inventories of marks, and I'm going to have you guys do this, and then in a minute I'll demonstrate one of them. So I would like for you guys to go through and start with just your graphite tools. You're going to get a kit through the Dick Blick University or Dick Blick U, and you'll get 6 graphite sticks. So you'll want you to start with those. You're also going to get a mechanical pencil, and then in this box of charcoal, you also have 2 graphites that I want you to pull out. So that is these 2 woodless ones. One is a 9B and one is a 6B. So your first material inventory will go that way. So you'll have your mechanical pencil. I think you have a 0.7. I have a 0.5 here. And then you'll go through your 2H, your HB, B, 2B, 4B, 6B, and then that's these. Then you'll grab these 2, the 6B and the 9B. These are your woodless pencils, so you can see how they work. So I'd like you just to use the material in a way that we're familiar, where you write the name of the utensil, and then I want you to make a couple different kind of marks, like a scribble, where they get a little more intense. Do a couple different kinds of scribbles, some curlicues, some straight lines, what we're going to call hatching marks here, some slower shading. I'll show you all of this with the charcoal in a minute, and then a couple different ones. So just a series of marks across the surface so that you can get used to how they all work. What's neat about this is that you can see that when you start with an H pencil and you work your way down to a 9B, you've created a value scale. I haven't really changed the pressure when I'm working with these, and you can see that it goes from lighter value to darker value as it goes, and that's going to be one of the cool things that we can use throughout the semester to create a sense of depth and movement in our drawings. So I'm going to have you guys do this one to start. In your kit, you also have a 4-pack of these Faber-Castell brush pens. There's a bullet nib, a soft chisel, a brush pen, and a soft brush. So I would like for you to do the same. A scribble, some lines, some hectic lines, trying to make a flatter shape with them, some cross hatching. This is called stippling, and then just some more calligraphic kind of scribbly lines, just to see how they function. And this shouldn't take too long. But we are going to do this together and get these out of the way with our charcoals because these materials might feel a little more unfamiliar to you. Oh, and I was going to say in a little bit on another page, we're also going to talk about our different erasers and this blending stick that is in our little kit. So we'll come to these in a little bit, and then hopefully by the end of this unit, we will have a good handle on our materials and feel confident as we move forward to start to make images with them. Okay, so in this little kit, you have a couple different kinds of charcoal. You have vine charcoal, compressed pastel charcoal, and then these pencils are, they look the same, but they're different. You have 3 narrow pencils, which are kind of like an ebony pencil if you've ever used one of those, but this is just their brand of that. Soft, medium, and extra hard, which I'll talk about. And then you have actual charcoal pencils here, a soft, a medium, and a hard as well. So we will discuss. But I'm going to start with the vine charcoal. You'll notice in the vine that you have some different thicknesses. And vine charcoal is literally just burnt willow wood. You can actually kind of see where a tree was just cooked. So it's like charcoal in your grill if you were to use wood chips. So let's try each one. I'm going to take them, I'm going to crack them in half because I have a little more control over them. And I just want you to see kind of how they work. And I'm having you guys write them out first because it's just something we're familiar with, marks that we're used to with the alphabet. You'll notice that when I'm holding the vine charcoal, I am not holding it like a pencil. It's very hard to do because it would break. And I want this to give you the ability to get used to holding a pencil this way. Go back to holding a 6B. Because if I use a pencil like this, mostly I can only then work from my wrist or from my fingers. But if I hold it like this, I can work from my elbow and my shoulders, and I can get longer, more controlled marks. I can control the pressure of a mark more than if I'm down here, because I can only move so far. So when you're doing these vine charcoal and these charcoal studies, let's see if we can hold it so that we have that shoulder elbow kind of mark. So I'm gonna make a couple different kinds of marks, and when it's really skinny it's kind of hard to use, but we can see how it goes. So try a couple different. I want to show you with the vine what will happen. We don't want to use our fingers to smudge things really ever at all, but I do just want to show you here how forgiving the vine charcoal is. And we're going to use that later in the semester because it's so forgiving. When we're starting to understand shapes and sighting and measuring, we can use it because we can erase it really quickly and make some pretty big marks rather quickly. So I'm not going to go through all 4 of them because these are all actually the same. These do come in soft, medium, and hard varieties, and you can get them outside of these packs in different versions where they say that. And then you can see that the soft leaves more pigment and the hard leaves less pigment. But I'm going to use the fat one this time. I'm going to also break it in half. I'm just going to try a couple more marks. See if I can use it where I hold it on its side and can shade a whole area very quickly. If I tried to do that with graphite, it would take quite a bit longer. So some hatching marks, some cross hatching. I can see that my tip of my graphite, the shape of it is changing. We're going to talk about that even with our graphite pencils in a little while, how we want to be in control on if something is sharp or dull, because it changes the way that the material affects the plane. So there's my vine charcoals. I'm going to switch to my compressed charcoals here. Some brands, it'll tell you if it's soft, medium, or hard. These just have numbers on them. This is an 01. This is an 02. And this is an 03. I think the other ones are 02s and 03s. So let's start with the 01. So you can see how much richer, kind of denser it is. I actually am going to break this in half too. I can work with it a little better if it's in half. It has a little bit of a coating on it at the beginning, so you'll see once it kind of flattens out how quickly it can cover a surface. You can see that there's a lot of residue left over, and so it's pretty messy. You can see that if you start to mush it around, you can push it into the tooth of the paper. Again, we're going to try not to ever mush our materials, but I'm just showing you that you can. You can see what happens if you kind of overlap some of it. See what happens if we try to do a hatching mark. We do a cross hatching mark. It's getting duller, so I'm covering more surface quicker. Again, a lot of residue. You might want to have a trash can nearby so you can shake these off without getting them all over your house. So that, oops, let's write what that was. That was the 1. We're gonna write the 02, break it in half again. We'll see if it's different. Yeah, you can see it, I think, from there to there. It's harder, so it's making a more intense kind of mark and not getting quite so messy quite so quickly. You see the difference. It didn't lay down quite as heavy in this area, and it has a sharper kind of edge. This is going to be our friend when we start to try to render something and we want to try to have a really crisp edge. Like I can make it cleaner than the one up above. It might seem strange just to be making these material studies, but it should feel good just to know kind of what your materials are and how they work. Okay, turn the page. I'm gonna tap mine off in the trash can here. There we go. Oops. This is still my stick material. You can kind of see how it falls apart. Here is my 03. So you can see it's even more, it's like a stiffer kind of mark, sturdier, and doesn't let as much pigment go, so it's harder. And it doesn't get as dark as the previous ones. You can kind of compare. So when we start to draw and try to, I'm going to use the word as render things, you will see that they, you can have a little more control. So just kind of is good to see how these materials work. This exercise shouldn't take you too long. It doesn't move around quite as much. You can also see what happens if you overlap. How dark you can get it. Okay, so those are our stick charcoals. Then we're gonna shift to working with the pencils. I think I may have done it on a different page. I think I'm gonna take advantage of this little area though, and I'm gonna layer a 1 next to a 2, next to a 3. Just to kind of see how they might work. See how crisp of an edge I can get, how dark I can get, that I can start to make something just with the pressure feel like it's got movement in space. Here's my little charcoals. Might put a little vine on this one just to see. How they compare. So this will all come together into making something pretty fabulous later. I'm going to shake this off again. Okay. So let's now try the pencils. It's a little messy, but it's pretty easy to wash up with soap and water. So I'm going to do the charcoal pencils first. I'm going to start with the soft, which is the number 1. I'm going to sharpen it to start. You have a little pencil sharpener in your kit, but you might want something that you can sharpen into. There's lots of different kinds of charcoal pencils. I can show you some. Some are these peel and sketch, which I really like, where you pull this back and then the paper unravels and you can get a long piece of it. Others come just in different brands. And they all work just fine. Here's an example of the Vine charcoal where it's a lot bigger. They have other ones that are quite a bit thicker. There's just a couple of different examples, what they look like. Okay, so here's my charcoal pencil soft, number 1. So you can see already it started to flatten out, and we really want to again be in control of that as we're working. It sounds funny, but this mark was actually harder to control than this stick because this one is harder. So you can make a cleaner line with that. Let's see if we try to make a soft shade with it. See if I do some hatching. And you can see then as I build up, I can make the values darker by layering and overlapping. You can see how much that pigment will move. We'll go to our medium. You already see that it's skinnier and a little harder, more compressed. And you can watch it again with some of the different lines. Let's see if I can sharpen it a little so I have some more pigment. So I've got more. If your pencils continually break on the inside, unfortunately there's nothing you can do about it. It just means that when they were in shipping they got dropped and they've cracked on the inside. So hopefully yours are not doing that. And when you take care of your pencils, these and your graphite pencils, you do want to be careful to keep them fairly secure. So again, holding it not like a pencil, but trying to use my elbow and my shoulder to see if I can make a soft kind of markless pass. You can see how I can build it up and make it darker as I layer. Let's try and see just a hatch mark. Where I want to show a little more of the mark making. Sometimes we want it really smooth and sometimes we want it to have a little more mark. Try some hatching. Now I'm holding it more like a pencil just to see how it varies. Trying to control that outer edge. And it's a little squishy because it's still soft. When we shift to the hard pencil, it won't be quite so messy. See, it moves a little less. And I'm gonna shift to the hard. Often, the softer the material, you want that for the interior of your forms, and the harder you want it for the outside. Sharpen it. A lot of people don't like pencil sharpeners, and they'll use a razor knife because they can kind of control the how much and how quickly the wood disappears, and they can control the shape. In your little kit, you are going to have, this will come in a white envelope. You have a sheet of 150 grit sandpaper, and you can sharpen the shape of things. It's almost easier with charcoal just to sharpen it on paper because they're so soft, but with your graphites you can use this to make things sharper again. So I'm just trying to see how it works, see if I can make a markless kind of path. We'll go back over it a little bit and see if I can make it darker. The hard materials are usually lighter, just like in our pencils. The H's, where is it at there, are your lightest. The B's get darker, and as the number goes up, it gets even darker. Hopefully you know that by now from when you practiced your little marks there. So I switched to the writing hold of the pencil. So you can see it's a little lighter even as I layer it than the one up above. Okay, there's those, and then let's do these Nero ones. So again, these are more like your what you would consider ebony pencils. So they have a little bit of wax in them. It's almost more like a crayon. The graphite, they're super silver, whereas these keep that rich velvety dark value. And you can see it's not as dusty, and I'm having a harder time making it dark quicker. And I can see how quickly it becomes dull, which isn't a bad thing. Oops, got my teeth. Oops. So I can make it a little darker if I add more pressure. And you'll also see that these don't really move quite the way the charcoal do. So they're very different material. And here's the extra hard. You can see already it's a 5. It's a lot lighter, and I'm trying to use the same pressure. So it's a little bit more like the graphite. You can also see that when I do the cross hatching, I get a darker value. And that will really help us when we start building subject matters. Okay, so there is our kit. I'm gonna put my woodless pencils back in here just so that it stays safe. I'm gonna flip the page one last time. We'll look at our erasers and we'll just see how they can function. I'm gonna start with I think I'm gonna use a 3B in pencil. So I'm trying to use the pressure so that I don't show a lot of marks in it. I'm using that overhand grip, whereas if it's just a lot harder to make it smooth when I draw with my wrist. So I just want us to see how these different erasers work. Yours might be longer when it comes in your kit, but this is your gum eraser. So it's like a medium. And just like the pencils that have a soft, a medium, and a hard, the erasers are soft, medium, and hard. So this is like your medium eraser. And these are good for just like removing excess, things that you don't really want. Kind of see how they can work. Sometimes people use their erasers to try to blend things. So you can see it's leaving some pigment behind, but I really am pushing and it's still there. This is your plastic eraser, a vinyl one. And this is where you can try and really pull up pigment a little bit better. When we use our better paper too, you'll see that it erases a little more. So just kind of play with them and see how they work. You can see that this actually is going to be our friend later. This is how we can narrow an area if we need to. I'm going to encourage us all semester not to use too many erasers so that it's all additive, but sometimes we need them. But you can see this is how we can, with the additive graphite, reshape using that hatching mark, building up values and kind of changing the way that that eraser was kind of fluffy and mushy. And then our last eraser that's in our kit is this kneaded eraser. It's kind of like chewing gum. And this is going to be our softest. And what these are really great for, it was double wrapped here, is lifting pigment kind of thoughtfully. So once you get it unwrapped, you're going to take it and you're going to squish it up and pull it apart. That's so satisfying. That's how you clean it. And often a good way to use this is just to pick up the pigment. So those were the same value, and you can see that I made it lighter, but I didn't really disturb the material. Whereas if I try to rub with it, it can kind of change and make it squish together. So that is that one. Something else that's not in your kit is the pink pearl. These are really nice. little erasers too. They have really big plastic erasers of all different kinds. Sometimes they have erasers in a stick or in pencil form, or they have batteries on them. But I think these three are kind of a good start for us. I just really quickly, before we put away the erasers, want to try it with some of the charcoal and show you one more tool that we have. So this is, I think this is our 2. I tried to push pretty hard so I can make a crispy edge and then lighter as I go. This will be how we start to make forms. So we'll just see what the different erasers do. Again, I'm not going to encourage a lot of smushing the material around. It's kind of better when they sit and float on top of the tooth of the paper. But you can see how if you wanted to slow the pigment down and almost draw with the erasers, you can. This is why people really like charcoal, because you can make huge drawings really quickly. You can make big areas of information happen pretty fast. I'm going to shift to the 3. This is the harder one. Again, I'm practicing trying to keep it really crispy on the outside edge. And I'll shift to seeing what happens with this one. We only have one white eraser in our kit, so sometimes people use the sandpaper to clean the charcoal off so that they can use it with both their graphite and their charcoals. We'll try not to use the charcoals and the graphites at the same time in one drawing, so you can clean the eraser in between. And then again, I'm going to use this, show you what we can do, like if we want to move the pigment and draw with it. So I'm almost like picking it up. You can see it on the edge there. So you can imagine if we're wanting to try to make a sphere study, how that would start to build up. And then to clean it, I pull it apart and squish it back together. There's no way to clean this eraser besides this, and then at some point over years they just kind of give out and then you have to get a new one. That's how you clean it. And then you can see where this is a pretty dark value all the way across, and I'm just going to pick up a part of it. So I'm going to kind of flatten this out. So you can see where you can lift with the eraser, but I haven't disturbed that line. And that's going to be the real key all semester, is how can we have these harder edges to create shapes and forms. So now I have a little bit of more of a highlight there. You can do things where you come back in with your charcoal pencils and reshape. You can leave some mark making, which is really our friend. In some cases, it makes them look a little more energetic. So on this page, if you just want to kind of play with them, I want to show you one more before I switch off of here. So I've got the vine, which is the really soft one. And again, I want to call this like our thinking charcoal. So this is the one that we'll do sighting and observation with at the beginning. I'm just going to make a little series of marks. And then I want to show you this. This is your is called a chamois, and it's kind of like the material that you would find in a suede skirt. It's a little piece of leather. If you're not wanting to use animal products, you can use a soft t-shirt, but I don't recommend like a paper towel. They don't work quite as well. This is also the material that if you were to wash your own car, you would get this at a car store and soak it in water and then squeeze it out and then dry your car off. But for us, it's like a magic eraser. So this charcoal, the vine is pretty soft. So I can just remove it. Like I can take most of it away and say that was my gesture drawing that I started something with. And I'm like, oh, that wasn't quite right. So I'm gonna rework it. I'm just trying to understand the beginnings of a subject. And I think, oh, no, I don't really like that angle. So I can just really quickly knock the pigment off. And it's not really for anything super refined. It's just like a all over swoosh. Like, let's just get rid of that and see where it can go. Once this gets dirty, that's it. Like, it's pretty much what it is. But you'll like it as it is. But look how much it can remove. So I think just even in these little material studies, you can see how we're going to be able to start to build forms and turn these shapes, really simple marks and shapes, into pretty cool forms. So just play with these for a little bit and see what they can do. See how far you can push them. Oh, I should say this too. When you're using erasers, you want to practice like hatching and cross hatching as well. The cross hatching mark where you go in different directions is going to help it make it look like that mark went away a little bit better. Okay, so that's it for our material studies section. We are going to meet back up in a minute for just a little bit more mark making, but this is just to get us started. Okay, we'll see you guys at the next unit. Thank you.